Sophie Cunningham just dropped a bombshell that has Caitlin Clark fans losing their minds. And no, it's not about some conspiracy theory or league agenda. This is about something way more personal, way more real. And it's happening right now as the Indiana Fever's season hangs in the balance. You see, what just happened between these two teammates reveals a side of the WNBA that nobody's talking about, and trust me, by the end of this video, you're going to see both of these players in a completely different light. But before we dive into what Sophie just revealed, if you're a fan of real basketball drama and want to stay updated on everything happening with Caitlin Clark and the Fever, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, with what's about to unfold this season, you don't want to miss a single update. Here's what went down. Sophie Cunningham, the player who literally fought for Caitlin Clark on the court, who became her enforcer, her protector, and honestly one of her closest friends on the team, just suffered a devastating season-ending MCL tear. Yeah, you heard that right. Season-ending. But here's where it gets interesting. Within minutes of the news breaking, Caitlin Clark did something that nobody expected, especially considering she's dealing with her own injury nightmare this season. Clark immediately took to Instagram with a message that had Fever fans emotional. "Love you always, Soph," she posted, tagging Cunningham in what seemed like a simple message, but actually revealed so much more about their relationship. But that's not even the half of it. Clark then referenced a Taylor Swift song to describe their season, calling it a cruel summer, which pretty much sums up what's been happening in Indianapolis. 3 guards out for the season, Clark herself missing over 20 games, and now her closest ally on the court is done for the year. But let's rewind for a second, because to understand why this matters so much, you need to know the full story of Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark. See, when Cunningham got traded to the Fever this past offseason, nobody really knew what to expect. She was coming from Phoenix, had a decent career, but wasn't exactly a household name. Then something changed. On June 17th, everything shifted. During a heated game against the Connecticut Sun, JC Sheldon poked Clark in the eye. What happened next turned Sophie Cunningham into a folk hero overnight. Cunningham didn't just stand up for Clark. She went full enforcer mode. She committed a hard foul on Sheldon that sparked a massive scuffle between both teams. Clark ended up getting knocked to the ground by Marina Mabrey in the chaos. Cunningham got ejected, fined $900, but here's the crazy part. Her social media following exploded. We're talking going from under 400,000 followers on TikTok to over 1.2 million in days. Instagram? She gained over 300,000 followers almost overnight. But Cunningham didn't stop there. After the game, she called out the WNBA referees directly, and I quote, "It was a buildup for a couple years now of them just not protecting the star player in the WNBA, and so at the end of the day, I'm going to protect my teammates. That's what I do." That's when everyone realized Sophie Cunningham wasn't just another teammate. She was Caitlin Clark's bodyguard, her enforcer, the one person willing to take the heat to protect the league's biggest star. Now, here's where things get really interesting. These two couldn't be more different if they tried. Clark is all business, barely does social media, doesn't fall for the celebrity lifestyle. She's the type who shows up, balls out on the court, and goes home. Sophie Cunningham, complete opposite. She's out here doing Arby's commercials, posting poolside bikini content that goes viral, and somehow dropping 15 and 10 on the court the same night like it's nothing. She believes in that work-play balance that Clark seems allergic to. In fact, just a few weeks ago, they had this hilarious exchange that shows exactly what their dynamic is like. Cunningham posted a TikTok video promoting a swimsuit brand, looking absolutely fire by the pool in LA. Clark's response? "Swimsuit brands plus comment focus on basketball. That's our Caitlin Clark, playing team mom even when she's injured." But Cunningham fired back on her podcast, and this is where it gets good. She said, "Dude, you don't have to be a hater. I'll get you like a one piece that only shows your eyes." Then she took a shot at Clark's pale complexion, saying, "She did something and has this big bruise on her leg, and I was like, you're finally getting color." The original TikTok comment from Cunningham that she later deleted was even more savage. "Maybe a brand will make a full-body wetsuit for your pale behind too. We all win." Can you imagine any other teammates in the WNBA having this kind of public banter? It's like watching your two best friends roast each other at a party. But here's what makes this friendship so special and why Cunningham's injury hits different. While everyone else was either targeting Clark or staying silent about the treatment she was receiving, Cunningham was the only one consistently speaking up. She revealed that her old team, the Phoenix Mercury, had actually planned to toughen up Caitlin Clark during her rookie season. She called it too much and took a stand when nobody else would. Think about that for a second. In a league where Clark was getting hip-checked, eye-poked, and knocked around game after game, Sophie Cunningham was the only teammate publicly saying enough is enough. She wasn't just protecting Clark physically on the court. She was protecting her reputation, calling out the refs, calling out other teams, and basically saying if you want to get to Caitlin, you have to go through me first. And the crazy thing? Cunningham has the credentials to back it up. Not many people know this, but Sophie Cunningham is a black belt in Taekwondo. Yeah, she earned that at age 6. She was also the first female to ever score points for her high school football team, kicking extra points and handling kickoff duties. This woman was literally built different from day one. But now, let's talk about what just happened that has everyone worried. During Sunday's game against Connecticut, the same team where all that drama started, Bria Hartley stumbled into the paint and crashed directly into Cunningham's right knee. The sound was awful. Cunningham immediately went down in pain, had to be helped to the locker room, and didn't return. 2 days later, the news everyone feared came true. Torn MCL, season over. The timing couldn't be worse. The Fever are currently 18-16, sitting third in the Eastern Conference, fighting for playoff positioning. They've already lost Sydney Colson to a torn ACL and Ari McDonald to a fractured foot. Both season-ending injuries that happened on the same night just 2 weeks ago. And Clark? She's been dealing with injury issues all season long. Let me break down just how insane Clark's injury situation has been this season, because it's actually unprecedented for a player of her caliber. She started the season missing 5 games with a left quad strain. Just when she came back and dropped 32 points, 9 assists, and 8 rebounds against the Liberty, boom, another injury. This time a left groin issue that kept her out for 2 more weeks. Then just when everyone thought she was back, a right groin injury on July 15th that has kept her out for the last 13 games and counting. Think about this. Clark has missed over 20 games this season. 20. For context, she never missed a single game in 4 years at Iowa. Not one. She never missed a game her entire rookie WNBA season. Now suddenly, she can't stay healthy, and neither can her teammates. The Fever have been so decimated by injuries that they had to sign Shea Petty to a 7-day hardship contract just to have enough healthy guards to play. And here's what Sophie Cunningham said about Clark's injury that has everyone concerned. She called it weird, saying Clark isn't in pain all the time, but when she does hurt it, she's out for another stretch. It's this stop and start pattern that's killing any chance of Clark finding her rhythm. When she has played this season, the numbers tell the story. 16.5 points per game on 36.7% shooting and just 27.9% from 3. Those aren't Caitlin Clark numbers. Those aren't even close to what she was doing as a rookie. The Fever's coach, Stephanie White, who ironically came back to coach the team this season after being away, has been incredibly cautious with Clark's recovery. She said they're taking it one day at a time, and that Clark's long-term health is the priority. But between you and me, something feels off about this whole situation. How does a 23-year-old athlete who never got injured suddenly can't stay on the court? And how do 3 guards on the same team all suffer season-ending injuries within 2 weeks of each other? Now, I'm not saying there's some conspiracy here, but the timing is suspicious as heck, especially when you consider that despite all these injuries, the Fever have somehow managed to stay competitive. They won the Commissioner's Cup without Clark. They've gone 4-2 in their last 6 games without their superstar. Kelsey Mitchell has been stepping up huge, averaging over 20 points per game. Aaliyah Boston has been dominant in the paint. But without Clark, and now without Cunningham, can they really make a playoff run? Here's what nobody's talking about, though. The relationship between Clark and Cunningham represents something bigger than just friendship. It shows what the WNBA could be if players actually supported each other instead of trying to tear each other down. When Clark was named All-Star Captain and got over 1.29 million votes, the most in WNBA history, who was the first person to congratulate her? Sophie Cunningham with a simple queen comment on social media. When Cunningham's social media was blowing up after the fight, going from nobody to over 1 million followers, Who was in her corner supporting her? Caitlin Clark. When Cunningham joked about Clark being too pale and needing to focus less on her teammates' bikini game, it wasn't mean-spirited. It was the kind of roasting that only happens between people who genuinely care about each other. And that's what makes Cunningham's injury so devastating for Clark personally. This isn't just losing a teammate. This is losing the one person who had her back unconditionally, the one person who was willing to get ejected, get fined, get criticized by the media, all to protect her. In a season where Clark has felt isolated, targeted, and honestly probably pretty alone at times, Sophie Cunningham was her rock. The contrast between how Cunningham treated Clark versus how others have is stark. While other teams were planning to toughen up the rookie sensation, Cunningham was planning how to protect her. While other players were taking cheap shots, Cunningham was taking the hits for standing up for what's right. While the refs were letting things get out of control, Cunningham was the one calling them out publicly. Remember, Cunningham even got fined $500 for a TikTok that jokingly criticized WNBA referees. She literally put her money where her mouth was when it came to protecting Clark and calling out the treatment she was receiving. How many other players in the league would do that? I'll wait, but here's what really gets me about this whole situation. The Fever organization finally had something special brewing. Clark and Cunningham's dynamic was must-watch TV. You had the super serious superstar and the fun-loving enforcer, the one who lives and breathes basketball, and the one who can balance modeling, social media, and still drop buckets. They complemented each other perfectly, and the fans loved it. Cunningham's follower count didn't explode just because of the fight. It exploded because people saw something real, something authentic. Here was a player willing to stand up for her teammate in a league where that seemed increasingly rare. Here was someone who brought personality, edge, and loyalty to a team that desperately needed all three. The Fever seemed to recognize this too. When they announced Cunningham's injury, it wasn't just a standard press release. The team, the players, everyone rallied around her. Clark's message was just the beginning. Other players posted support. Fans flooded social media with well wishes. Even former players reached out. It was the kind of response you'd expect for a superstar, not a role player. But that's the thing, Sophie Cunningham had become so much more than just a role player. Now, as we look ahead to the rest of the season, the big question is whether Clark can even make it back. ESPN's latest projection has her potentially returning on August 22nd against the Lynx. But that's far from certain. She still hasn't returned to full team practices. She's still doing individual workouts. And with the way this season has gone, would anyone be surprised if another setback happens? The Fever are at a crossroads. They're good enough to make the playoffs, but without Clark and Cunningham, are they good enough to do anything once they get there? Mitchell and Boston are playing their hearts out, but basketball is a team game. You need that chemistry, that connection, that trust between players. Clark and Cunningham had that in spades. What's even more frustrating is that this was supposed to be Clark's breakout season. After winning Rookie of the Year, after finishing 4th in MVP voting, this was supposed to be the year she took the league by storm. Instead, she spent more time in the training room than on the court. She's missed the All-Star game in her home city. She's missed the chance to build on the momentum from her incredible rookie campaign. And for Cunningham, this was her moment too. She'd finally found her role, her purpose, her place in the league. She wasn't just Sophie Cunningham anymore. She was Caitlin Clark's enforcer. She was the player every team needed, the one who brought toughness, personality, and loyalty. Her social media was exploding. Brands were calling. She was becoming a star in her own right. The injury to Cunningham also raises questions about the physical style of play in the WNBA. When Hartley crashed into her knee, was it intentional? Probably not. But it's part of a pattern of physical play that has dominated the league this season. And ironically, the player who spoke out most about protecting players from unnecessary physicality is now the one whose season is over because of it. But you know what? If there's one thing we've learned about both Clark and Cunningham this season, it's that they're fighters. Clark has been battling through injuries all year, refusing to give up even when her body is telling her to stop. And Cunningham? She turned herself into a folk hero by standing up for what's right, even when it cost her money and got her ejected. Their friendship, their bond, their mutual respect, that's not going anywhere. When Clark posted, "Love you always, Soph," she meant it. When Cunningham called Clark queen, she meant it. These aren't just teammates going through the motions. These are two players who found something special in each other, something that transcends basketball. As the Fever head into the final stretch of the season, they'll have to do it without their enforcer. They might have to do it without their superstar. But the foundation that Clark and Cunningham built, that culture of having each other's backs, that's still there. Mitchell, Boston, Hull, and the rest of the team have seen what real loyalty looks like. They've seen what it means to stand up for your teammates. The question now is whether they can carry that forward, whether they can play with the same intensity, the same protection for each other, the same refusal to be pushed around that Cunningham embodied. Because make no mistake, other teams will test them. Without Cunningham on the court, teams might go back to targeting Clark if she returns. Without that enforcer presence, the physical play might ramp up again. But here's my take, and you can call me optimistic if you want. This adversity might just be what brings this team together. Sometimes you don't realize what you have until it's gone. The Fever players now know what it's like to have someone like Cunningham in their corner. They know what real teammate loyalty looks like. And if they can channel even half of that energy, half of that protective instinct, half of that fighter's mentality that Cunningham brought every single night, they might just surprise some people. Clark will be back. Maybe not this week, maybe not next week, but she'll be back. And when she returns, she'll be playing for more than just herself. She'll be playing for Cunningham, for Colson, for McDonald, for all the teammates who've gone down this season. She'll be playing with a chip on her shoulder and something to prove. And Cunningham, she'll be watching every game, probably posting on social media, definitely having Clark's back even from the sidelines, because that's who Sophie Cunningham is. She doesn't need to be on the court to be part of this team. Her impact, her influence, her spirit, that's already embedded in this Fever squad. Look, I know this season hasn't gone the way anyone expected. The injuries have been brutal, the drama has been exhausting. But sometimes the toughest seasons create the strongest bonds. Sometimes adversity reveals character. And if nothing else, this season has revealed that Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham have the kind of friendship, the kind of loyalty, the kind of mutual respect that you just don't see much anymore in professional sports. So, yeah, Cunningham's season is over. Clark's still battling to get back. The Fever are limping toward the playoffs, but this story isn't over. Not by a long shot. Because when you have players like Clark and Cunningham, players who genuinely care about each other, who fight for each other, who refuse to let each other fail, anything is possible. And that's the real story here. Not some conspiracy theory about the league trying to change anyone, not some agenda about forcing players to be something they're not. The real story is two basketball players who found an unlikely friendship, who had each other's backs when it mattered most, and who showed the entire WNBA what real teammate loyalty looks like. If you made it this far, you're a real one. Make sure to hit that like button if you're rooting for Clark and Cunningham, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates as this wild season continues. Comment below with your thoughts. Do you think Clark will make it back for the playoffs? Can the Fever make a run without Cunningham? Let me know what you think. Until next time, this is your source for all things WNBA, and remember, in a league full of drama, sometimes the realest thing is just two teammates having each other's backs.